All right. So very excited to talk to Kimberly and Justin Slagle today. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the show here.
Thank you. Doing good.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to make this connection. As I said, before we hit record here, I've been following what you all do, and I've actually been sending people your way, and we haven't had a chance to speak yet. So super excited to make the connection and really just learn a little bit more about branding and what you all do.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so I didn't even tell you this before, but when we first got started doing all of this, I was doing my due diligence, doing my research. And I was like, is there anyone out there that even talks about websites to therapists? And so I Googled and you came up. And so you were a huge inspiration for us in getting into this whole thing too. And just the content you put out for therapists. There's so much and it's so good. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Yeah, a lot of people come across my stuff because I've been blogging and putting out content since like 2016 now. So a lot of people come through Google because there's just so much stuff out there. Some of it I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this because my business has changed so much. Back then it was all about like, I'm going to make courses and training and all that stuff. And I found that actually drained my energy a lot. So now I'm really focused on the agency side of things and just more of that one-on-one client stuff. So cool. Well, let's get started with you all, and what you do, and tell me a little bit about your story, for people who don't know who you are and what you do. Just fill us in and just let us know how you got started doing what you do as well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we are Practicery, if you didn't catch that already. We're a graphic design company that specializes in custom visual branding and websites for therapists. Our combined experience in design, marketing, the mental health field are, I think, perfectly aligned, that we can jump in, help folks create a look and feel for their business, their practices, their passion projects, that really showcase their authentic style, expertise, and just, trying to connect with the clients to make them say like, I found the one,
Yeah.
But they get that feeling the second they start interacting with their brands.
Yeah. And how did you get started doing what you're doing now? Like when did Practicery start, and how did you land on, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, I think we're going on year 4 now. So
awesome.
Awesome. But
it's official.
Yeah, it's official.
It was kind of a hobby, when you started there, it's like, oh, I'll see where this goes. And now it's like, okay.
Yeah, we're there now, man. Anyway, I think it started probably when I decided to change career paths. I had been trained in psychology, didn't really get into the counseling role. I was a little more into like org psych, working in the corporate world and all that. But I realized that I think it just wasn't like what I wanted to do. It wasn't the right fit. So I decided to pursue another passion of mine from long ago, which was graphic design. And so I had an opportunity to go back to school.
Yeah, I was like right around then. Justin went back to school. I was fully licensed. I had a solo practice, and I'd kind of put that on the back burner. When I got a job with the Gottman Institute, kind of running their professional development department, helping with some marketing stuff. And so that was another like huge professional dream of mine that I was living out. And then I got kind of to a place where I missed some of that clinical stuff. So anyways, I left Gottman, started a group practice, and it was right around the time that Justin was kind of finishing up school, and they needed to do this big capstone project. And so I don't know, I just begged and pleaded. I was like, please rebrand my practice, and
awesome.
Let's go in on that together. And so, yeah, we got to work together for like a whole summer. It was super cool. Got an awesome new brand and website from it. And yeah.
And you found you actually enjoyed working together, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a plus, I think.
Yeah.
I think we just both realized that we both have skill sets that really complement one another.
Yeah.
And when we work together, we actually make some pretty cool shit. So
yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, we got to see also like the positive impact that that was having going through that process, that that was having on Kim's practice. And other therapists must have noticed because they started reaching out, and we made it official. Practicery was born.
That's awesome. That's so cool, because I'm smiling because it's similar to almost my story. When my wife is a therapist, I'm not a therapist. I have absolutely no background in it. And I always say to my wife, I'm like, I could never do what you do. And she's like, I could never do what you do, but when she first went into private practice, it was a similar story of like, like, okay, yay, I get to make your website now. Like, what do we want this website to look like and be like? And it was more of just like a fun project for me to do. And I mean, that was back in 2011 or 12 or something like that. But then over time, people she was working with, they found out that I did websites. And so everyone was like, can you build my website? Can you build my website? And for the longest time, I was like, no, I don't really have time to do that. And then I realized I kind of want to change what I'm doing. I don't really want to work for, corporate stuff anymore. And I was in a nonprofit for 5 years doing their website stuff. And then I was like, what can I do? Oh, I can help therapists, because people have already been asking me about that. So I had sort of that, network right there to get started. So, and it's fun when you get to bounce the ideas off of your partner and find out, does this work? Is this crazy? Or, are we onto something here?
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, totally. I'm laughing because when we first thought of it, I'm like, oh, we need to do exactly what we did for me, but for everyone. Justin's like, well, we can't have everyone come to our house for a whole summer.
Intensive branding project.
Yeah.
Right.
/ retreat.
Yeah,
branding retreat. It might be cool.
Branding retreat.
So yeah,
Cool.
definitely tweaking the process a little bit.
Well, let's get into our topic for today. So you sent me a list of a couple of things we could talk about. And the one that really jumped out to me is why it's so important to develop your visual brand before you build your website. And I said kind of selfishly, this is kind of like a public service announcement, because this is something that we run into a lot here at Private Practice Elevation when, people are really ready to get started. And it seems like their focus is so on, we need to get the website done and looking a certain way. But then we start to get into it and we're like, well, do you have a logo? And they're like, oh yeah. And it's basically, it's just type. It's just their name, and in something I could do in like a Word document, something like that. Like, oh, that doesn't really fit in with this nice, beautiful website we're building. So I'll let you kind of take away, like set us up, and where do we get started with, why is it so important to focus on your visual brand?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the word branding or brand, there's so much that goes into that, right? And so I get that, like when people, maybe even when they talk about a visual brand, it's kind of hard to wrap our head around it. But rather than go into kind of right now all the things of like what makes up a brand or what makes up a visual brand, I guess the most important reason you want to do that is because, something like a website, it's that first touch point for a lot of clients. It's the first thing that clients are saying or processing about you. It's the first chance to really kind of tell your story, make a connection, build some trust. And so your visual brand really helps you do just that. I mean, our brain processes visual stuff so quickly before we're even aware, before we're even having kind of a chance to read the words on a website. So, right off the bat, anything you can do to work on your visual brand to get it really in line with who you are, how you help, it's just going to create kind of that experience for the client that really connects them to you right off the bat.
Yeah. And what goes into, let's kind of take a step back, without getting too sidetracked, what really goes into a visual brand? Because I know we're not talking just about the logo itself. What are the other aspects of a visual brand that people need to think about?
Yeah, well, a logo, logo is definitely a huge part of it. But a visual brand is going to be everything from your brand's color palette to the way typography is handled, different graphical like accents, I guess you can think of them as, little things, shapes and textures and patterns and whatnot that really help ensure consistency, I guess, across all these different channels or or platforms.
Yeah. And also like ensuring that your stuff is accurately representing who you are and like accurately telling your clients how you're going to help them. Right.
Yeah.
So if you've got an anxious client and they're really just kind of wanting to feel less like restless and they're thinking they're wanting to just kind of feel calmer, you maybe don't want a bunch of neon, like flashy, like colors and things and movements.
Yeah.
That's just going to kind of maybe add to that feeling of overwhelm. So yeah, thinking beyond your logo, like we said, it's like obviously the logo is a big piece of your brand, but really thinking about the whole visual experience can really kind of make or break it. And I think, you know, maybe the obvious other answer to that is like, if you haven't thought about that, then how do you know how to design the site? Like what colors are you going to use? What kind of stock photos are you going to use? Or if you hire a photographer, do you know how to direct them of like what pictures you're going to need? All of that stuff. So I feel like you can be kind of sitting there scratching your head for a lot longer, or maybe even whoever you're having help design your website. If you don't have that stuff figured out on the back end, it's kind of hard to know just what vibe you're going for.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. As you know, somebody who's overseeing many projects, I'd say probably nine out of 10 people who come to us, they don't have their brand really set. They might have a logo, but beyond that, you know, maybe a couple colors. Beyond that, they don't really have anything. So, and this is something that actually just came up with, you know, within the last probably 3 months or so. We had a couple of clients who, you know, we do an intake process and we try to get as much out of them as we can to really describe their ideal clients and all that stuff. You know, and give us some stock photos that you're inspired by, websites you're inspired by, stuff like that. But sometimes we miss the mark, you know, when the branding information isn't there. And so we had a couple of those and it was like, it happened twice. It was like, okay, we need a better process to understand or set their brand because people are coming to us without their brand being set. So we kind of landed on doing a little more research and more mood boarding before we get into actually building a whole website to say like, hey, here are 3 different screens that you can look at that set a tone, a feel. Like, how do you think your ideal clients are going to respond to this? Because without that information, you know, we usually hit the nail on the head, but sometimes we don't. I was like, okay, we can't have this happen again. Do you ever kind of run into that? Because I know you do Squarespace websites as well. Do you ever run into that where they're not interested in like the branding part? They're just like, hey, give us a website.
Totally. Yeah. I know people can't see us, but we're sitting here like really nodding.
Yes.
Totally.
Nodding along. Cause you know, we get folks and we don't force everyone to go through branding. I mean, obviously we're biased toward it. And so we're really going to recommend it. But we have folks that are like, I just want to purchase a website. And so kind of like you, I mean, we've really refined our questionnaire to try to ask like way more upfront. We even share some like Pinterest exercises that we use in the branding process. And even with gathering all of that and even being experts in this, we can still get really lost at times. Or I think for folks, it's kind of hard for people to imagine all of like how that all comes together still. So for example, I mean, they might say, oh, I love green and it like needs growth. And then they see their website with all of that integrated in and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm loving it, you know? So I think you can like a color or you can like certain elements, but it's hard to really know how they're all going to come together and how they're all going to play off of each other. But you see it. So at least, I don't know if you've experienced this, but there are times when, you know, it makes us have to kind of rebuild the site more in the front. And it's really just kind of hard, you know, we might have to do twice as many versions of the homepage to kind of pitch to folks to really start to get clear on like what direction are we taking this thing in.
Yeah, it's more difficult to connect back to, you know, how does this get the clients that you want to be seeing this color green, or, you know, it's beyond just what you like. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you've experienced any of this, Daniel, but I feel like when we don't have that information for the visual brand like really figured out, it's harder for us to really customize it. Like I feel like people run the risk of falling into something that feels a little more templated, feels a little more cookie cutter, or a little more like other therapist websites that you might see, because you haven't figured out those things that really make you unique and really figured out how you're going to tell the story of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're taking, maybe we just have a logo and we don't even have color palettes, so we tend to give people some resources where they can look at, what are some colors that inspire you, and then we ultimately take that and kind of pull it down into, this color really seems to sit with us as far as your ideal client goes, and that we feel like this could flow, so. But then, like you said, it might mean doing a couple revisions of the homepage just to be like, we tried this color palette, but maybe we should try this one, see how it feels. It's you're trying to refine it later on in the process. Whereas if somebody came to us and was like, hey, here's our brand booklet, which sometimes happens, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. This is like, this makes it so clear. We know which fonts are part of your brand. We know, the colors and some of the, stock photos, how they should feel, and the style. That really, it sets a lot, and it really makes the design process go so much smoother and so much quicker.
Totally. And it's not that we have some coveted secret that is like people can only discover through us and doesn't exist anywhere. I mean, like many things, the information is out there. I mean, you can go online, beauty of the internet. You can teach yourself all about color theory. You can explore a lot of that on your own and do some of that groundwork before you go to a designer, so that you don't really have to hire someone to kind of guide you through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Or if you find a designer that's awesome like you are, that actually takes some of that into consideration and maybe doesn't do it all for them, but like gives some guidance.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But I think if people really want a little more deep dive into it and really want some hand holding, and don't want to kind of figure that out all on their own, then it's definitely worth, of course, again, we're biased, but I think it's definitely worth that investment.
Yeah.
To really go through that branding process and really get a clear understanding of kind of why you're using what you're using and doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Are there any resources, you just mentioned like some resources that people can check out. Are there any that come to mind that you can share that'd be helpful for people to go check them out if they're just in that place of just starting out, and trying to figure out where to go, how do I start branding and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, this might, again, it's not rocket science. Like, first thing that came up to my mind is Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest is a crazy awesome resource where you can type in color palette, a bazillion come up, and people have written like whole blog articles attached to those describing the like color of psychology. You can search the psychology of font, of shape, and people have even made these like beautiful like informative graphics that break all of that down. And I think it's a nice, I mean, obviously there's probably a bunch of people that have written a bunch of fancy books, and Justin could probably speak to resources they used in like design school, but I feel like, keep it simple, keep it straightforward.
Yeah.
Pinterest, or just, the good old GTS, Google that shit.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about,
actually...
Oh, sorry.
I
didn't know if you had thought of it.
No, I was trying to think if there was anything else off the top of my head that, but I mean, yeah, Pinterest is a big one. I guess sometimes if we're looking at a little bit like higher design, we'll look at Designspiration, which is similar to Pinterest, Tumblr, those types of things. Gosh, I think
I've seen that one. I'm going to put that in the show notes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Designspiration. Yeah, that one's really cool.
It's like Pinterest for designers, though, like a lot more kind of high level. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's escaping me now. But there's a really good color, like a psychology of color resource out there too. Maybe I can get the link for you.
Yeah, or we can all just Google it, of course.
Or yes, we can all just Google it. Right.
Yeah, and back to Pinterest. So I think Pinterest is actually when I first started my business, I was heavily into Pinterest. I actually marketed the business like a lot on
Hmm.
Pinterest. And so, I'm just familiar with, like, there's just so many great resources. And then I kind of got away from it for a while, but recently we're really working on our process. And like I said, to really nail down like people's their brand and their look and feel when we design the websites. So we're starting to require that our clients put together a Pinterest board, because you can just go on there and you could say like, oh, well, I want people to feel calm. So do a search for calm website and you'll just get like all this stuff. I want a bold website. Okay, type that into Pinterest and then you see all these things, and then you could save that as inspiration. And then we can take that, work that into a mood board, and we're one step closer to really nailing what your website needs to look and feel like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we do something similar with our branding clients. Just started doing it more recently with some of our web clients that don't do the branding.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a different product where we'd go kind of all out, pull all these design things, make all these mood boards. And it's not that it wasn't effective, but sometimes we were finding that people wanted to be more engaged and kind of like co-creators in that process. And so we stripped all that out recently. And the first thing we do is have people go into Pinterest and just kind of have a fun like exploration session, deep dive a little bit, pull a bunch of things. They might not even be able to make full sense of everything they're pulling. And then we use all the things that they find to really teach the psychology of design. And anyway, I think that's been a much clearer and just kind of
a little more focused,
better process for everyone. So
cool. Well, that's encouraging for me, because we haven't really used it too much yet with our clients, but it's something that we definitely want to get into, because I think it's super helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, that was part of like our process originally. I think that was so cool over the summer that I got to be really hands-on involved. And obviously, like I said, we're not gonna be inviting everyone to our house for 2 or 3 months to do this, but that's been a really big goal of ours, which is not only how do you develop a brand that's really authentic and effective with your clients, but something that you love and you feel like you co-create how to roll in, right? It's more than just like, well, I filled out a questionnaire and picked a thing and then they like delivered a thing and now I use it. And so I feel like people are much more likely to get excited about marketing and want to do that when they feel like they've created this cool brand that fits them and their clients. And they're just like really excited to get out there and share it, which is a lot for therapists because we don't really see ourselves as like often anyways as people who are excited to get out there and sell a bunch of stuff.
Marketing and showing your stuff to the world. But it is like you said, it's super. I think it's like it's super, it's inspiring and it's helpful, and I think it gets you really excited for your business. You're like, wow, I put in this work. I understand my ideal client. I understand what they're going to respond to as far as visuals go, and so I have this brand that really speaks to them, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Totally. And like you said, like confident grounds you. You're like, oh, like, not that you don't know what you're doing before, but I don't know. There's just something in it that has it make more sense. And there's a confidence in there. Comes from it. So
for those people who are, before we kind of started this conversation with getting your visual branding kind of in line before you move to the website stuff. So for people who are there and they're looking to get started, what are some of the things that people need to think about? What are some of the questions that you might ask them to get them really thinking about what their brand should be like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say just kind of as a precursor to that people don't have to be in a certain place. Like sometimes we get people, they're like, I don't even know what I'm going to name the thing yet. Like, do I have to know what I'm going to name or call my practice? Like if they don't want to use their own name before I start working with you guys, it's like, well, no, I mean, obviously we'll need that before you do a logo design or anything. But sometimes that information or inspiration comes out of some of the branding process. And so we're definitely going to kind of coach people wherever they're at. But I'd say if people want to really prepare, thinking about what we call kind of the nuts and bolts or foundation, which surprisingly enough doesn't have anything to do with visuals or graphic design, but it's getting really clear on like, what are your values? what is your purpose? Meaning like, what is motivating you to like do this thing, and what makes you want to get out of bed every day and help the people you want to help? Who do you want to help? So who's that ideal client?
Ideal clients, right?
We can't help everyone and speak to everyone at the same time. I know, like, some of us don't want to because we want to be so helpful, right? But we really need to kind of get clear on who can we help? What are our goals? The services you offer, the outcome, right? We were kind of talking about, you know, maybe for anxious folks, you might want to have them feel calmer as an outcome. So really kind of thinking about, what do you want folks to achieve? Another one of our favorite questions is thinking about the impact. So if you could be known for one thing in your field or community, like what would that be? Or another way to think of it is, if people are out there talking about you, which hopefully they are because you want them talking about your business, but if or when they are, what do you want them to be saying about you? Sharing with other people about what you do. So all that good kind of what, where, how, why.
Oh, you already did one.
Foundational stuff.
Yeah.
If you get really clear on that, then folks like us, or again, like people on their own, if they do their own research, you know what you're telling the story.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of a lot easier to match those visuals. If you don't really know that stuff, like you said, you're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, and oftentimes developing a thing that someone might like Justin was saying, someone might love the color green, but it might not be achieving like on a bigger level for you what you're hoping to communicate or achieve with your client. So
so I'll just encourage people to rewind that and listen to Kimberly's questions that she just said, and just like open up a Word document, answer all those questions, and your website designer, or even if you go on and still work with a branding person, they are going to thank you and love you for it, because it's some stuff that takes time, I think, to like really sit and work through. And I enjoy that part of the process too, when clients are like, I never had to answer so many questions, like just to build a website. I'm like, well, we really need to know, and we really need you to know who we're trying to reach with this website and with your brand. So I think it's super important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. And, you know, like you were saying, like, it's great if people have done some of that. And if they haven't, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always great. Like you said, like people will be like, wow, I really appreciate you getting me to think through this. Or if people have spent a lot of time on it, they're like, wow, that wasn't a waste of time.
That was actually really helpful.
I really am like, yeah, you know, we're like, dude, you've done so much of the groundwork already. It's awesome. They're like, oh, wow, okay, I really see the bigger use of this other than just my own getting my thoughts in order.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Well, are there any final words of wisdom, anything you want to say about branding before we hop off here?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Put you on the spot.
I know, right? Covered so much, and honestly, I think we could do a million more podcasts, right? Because there's so many different directions and kind of depth that we could put into it. I don't know. I guess just like having people, for me, like taking away, like seeing the value in it. I don't really believe in like we should just run out and do a thing because other people are doing it. The great thing about marketing is you don't have to do anything one way, right? I mean, there's some people out there that are full and they don't even they've never built a website, which there might be some people that are like, that's crazy. You have to have a website. It's, 2021. So yeah, I want people to really like understand and see the value in it. Obviously we're biased. We see the value in it. I think that it can kind of benefit anyone, even if they're full, just having that professional presence and brand out there, I think has a huge value to it. But yeah, just hopefully people can start to learn and understand the importance of it before they just kind of throw money at it. And then that will help them really, I think, choose the right fit of designers and all of that too. And they're not just kind of running to Fiverr and buying a logo just because they saw 100 other people do it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where my mind went when you just said that. I said like Fiverr. I was thinking about Fiverr. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Justin, you look like you were deep in thought there when I posed that last question. So I'm gonna put you on the
well,
spot.
Well, then I started listening, and I don't think I could add anything to that. I really think if anybody could take anything away from this today, like, yeah, just seeing the value in investing in that, because it just informs everything that you're going to do marketing wise and beyond. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do it to do it. I'd almost rather people just have no logo than have one they rushed out to get because they thought they should and they hate it and they're using it anyways, and they or website too, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're probably just going to end up spending more money because you're going to end up going back because you hate it and redoing it and all that stuff, which isn't fun.
Or you won't want people to see it.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, yeah.
Sometimes I'm like that with the
your
Practicery
marketing
site, because we designed our site so long ago. We've been talking about redoing it for so long. It's been a work in progress, but we always prioritize client stuff. And even I've gone to a place where I'm like, people are like, oh, we saw your web. I'm like, oh, you saw that? Like, okay, let me send you some other stuff.
And it happens a lot. I think somewhere, I don't know if it's still up, but I know at some point in my marketing, I've probably used that phrase of, are you embarrassed by your private practice website? Because so many people were coming to us like, I don't really want people to see this. Like, please change it quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, like, you want to feel confident and excited to put your stuff out there. And so, I can't even remember where I was going with that, but I like that we wrapped it in here. It feels right.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me. It's been great to chat about this stuff. Where can people find you online if they want to get started with you?
Not our website.
Okay. Practicery.com.
Awesome.
An awesome start.
Practicery.com. Bring your therapist non-judgmental. So we all say we're non-judgmental, right? So,
it's a safe space.
Awesome.
Through our website would be the best place. And we'd love to talk to anyone about branding stuff who is just interested. Oh, and we have a Facebook group called Therapists Who Brand.
Cool.
And that's another great way to connect with us, ask questions. We share resources like examples of stuff, all of that. If you're just interested in kind of getting your feet wet, but you're not ready to purchase branding or anything like that, Therapists Who Brand on Facebook would be a great place. We'd love to connect with you.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kimberly and Justin. It was great chatting with you.
All right. Thank you, Daniel.